Hey, good evening and welcome to Fish on Northwest. Wayne England. The Barnum has the night off. He is preoccupied with other life events and not able to make it in. So we grabbed the next best thing laying around. Stunt Double Dave is in the house this evening to give me a hand. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. My schedule opened up, so I was happy to get up here and do the show with you.
Yeah, about time to get you up here to the studio. You've been kind of busy up until now, so but we'll get into all that. Dave Calhoun, for those of you unfamiliar, but I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with, former co-host on Outdoor GPS for a number of years. We've been friends for close to 10 years now. Yep. So we have spent a lot of time jumping back and forth on each other's shows over the years. And, you know, we've kind of actually now officially both have retired from the same previous network. Yeah, I guess we could say. So previous shows, Northwest Wild Country and Outdoor GPS. So used to share a Saturday morning for years doing all that stuff. And anyway, glad you made the drive up. Going to be a fun evening with you in the house. Always is. Plenty of entertainment going on that head of his. We got David over in IT Corner getting it done. Of course, we'll be joined later in the kitchen with none other than Chef Kelly Lance O'Neill and Sherry. A little disclaimer, I'm going to throw it out there right now at the start of the show. Chef Kelly is up in Canada for the next several months. He's a waterfowl guide. The outfit that he's with is he took opportunity to go up to Canada this season, and we'll spend the next several months up there. So our cooking segments for the next several weeks, so probably a month and a half or two, are pre-records. He was gracious enough to come here and spend a couple days, and we put a ton of work in. Got a lot of stuff in the can that we'll just roll into. It'll look as live as ever because we do one takes. I told those two. There's no editing on this stuff. You're just going to shoot it live, and that's how we do it. So you can enjoy the flavor of it still feeling like it's live because it'll be a pre-record and there's no editing. And as we move forward, we're going to be looking to pull some folks in that can assist as stand-in stunt double chefs. So we got some people out there with some pretty good cooking chops, and they want to get involved. And we're always cooking fish, fowl, and game here on Fish on Northwest. So if you think you got what it takes, want to come in and do a segment with Sherry in the kitchen, make sure you hit us up on our Facebook page, Messenger or otherwise, and let us know. And we will give some due consideration to those that would want to come in and share some of your favorite outdoor recipes until we get Chef back out of the duck blind. So got that going on. I want to remind everybody that Fish on Northwest is presented by Better Homes and Gardens, Pacific Commons Real Estate, located in Puyallup, Washington, and they are here each and every week for us, and we appreciate that. Dave, lots of stuff going on throughout the Pacific Northwest and beyond as we rolled into the week. A couple things. I did actually get out fishing a handful of times this week, bounced around and tried a few different things. Just to give everybody an up-to-date, a few days ago, ventured out to Willapa. The tides were pretty conducive to fishing. We had a pretty moderate, load tide change as far as it was like a 5.5, 6 foot total tide change, which is nice for that particular fishery because you don't have a lot of water moving. The grass stays pretty, it kind of balls up in certain areas that makes it much easier to fish than when we had those big tides. Water's really rushing. We got tons of grass flushing in and out. So the conditions were great. The weather was great. Didn't have a lot of wind. The only one I had to go with me was my father, which was great. He's only going to, I can't even talk tonight, going to be 80 years old in a couple weeks. Still loves to get out and fish. We try to get as much time together on the water as we can, especially when I don't have guys on the crew available. We got out there. There was a handful of boats fishing, very few fish caught. We ended up losing 2 Chinook right at the boat. Barbless hooks or otherwise, whatever. Ended up taking home 1 nice coho, had 1 other drive-by. Most of the boats checked seemed to encounter anywhere between 2 and 3 fish that were checked. We came in mid-afternoon after we fished it through the other side of the high tide, and Fish Checker had accounted for 9 boats and 6 fish. So it wasn't exactly on fire. And if we would have actually boated our couple Chinook, we would have had, hot boat as far as what had come in by afternoon. So I got to think that this next week, as we get around that Labor Day time, Willapa really starts fishing pretty well. Anticipation that it is going to perform well, albeit the tides are going to be stacked against you as you get the one high tide midday. I believe if I looked at that right, I have looked at so many tides this last week I've lost track. But we'll have a tide cycle that's not conducive to really great fishing, but the fish should be there. And for those that know how to fish Willapa, you'll probably find your fish. I'm going to try to see if we can't sneak back down there and get some. You ever fished Willapa?
No, that's one of the areas that I haven't. And, you know, one of the things about you being up here and me being kind of down there is that we cover so much ground.
Yeah.
Different places. Because you get to fish all these awesome places. And sometimes you get hosed on some
Oh,
things.
yeah.
You know, we talk about that a lot.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
you know, I'm a Columbia guy. So whether I'm on the lower end or the upper end, you know, I'm traveling all over the Northwest. But you really have a real grasp on what's going on up in this area, and there's so many places I haven't been up here.
Sure.
Just because timing and you know, being able to you know, get service sometimes where I go and do things. But
yeah.
I'd love to go up there and fish that. I'd like to get in on that shrimp fishery that they do out there, and just stuff that I haven't done before.
There's so much to go and do, and so many fisheries to try and figure out. You can't possibly do them all, but you certainly can try. Every one of them, there's a learning curve, you know. And I've been fishing Willapa for, I don't know, 3-4 years now, and figuring it out a little more each time along the way. And, you know, having Barnum here helps. That guy grew up in that area, fishes it a ton. Got other buddies that I've been fishing with out there the last couple of years, and knowing what works and what to do. And, you know, the presentation I did several weeks ago talked about the stick we put in there, the skewer that I break down to a 2 3/4 inch through the size 3 swivel as your weed guard. Works fantastic. It loads up pretty good. You can definitely tell when those weeds get on there, because your presentation at a 45, if you're using a 16-ounce lead or even 20, depending on the current, at times we'll go heavy like that. A lot of guys fish lighter weight out there, but we have had more productivity going with heavier lead, keeping it down. You'll see that your presentation starts to rise up out of the water, and you start getting that elongated line presentation. You know that your weed guard is loaded with weeds, and it's like a planer. It lifts it right up out of the and you're only fishing 20 to 22 foot of water most of the time, so it doesn't take much to get it up out of the strike zone. So you just got to be cognizant of that. When the weeds are really bad, you're literally going from one rod to the next, constantly clearing weeds to keep your presentation down. But again, the fish will be showing up. It seems like there's a decent number of fish around, according to the reports I'm getting. Not that it's absolutely on fire. It could turn on any given day as we get closer to Labor Day weekend. Fished Area 10 the very next day. Bad choice on my part. I looked at the weather the night before. I thought it had indicated we're going to have 2 to 3 mile an hour winds. Loaded up with friends and neighbors and headed on out to Kingston. Launched at Kingston, got out there. It was a ghost town. I'm like, where is everybody? And I start pulling up the regs to see if it was closed. I'm kidding. I know it's open, but
whenever you show up at the boat ramp and there's not a bunch of boats, and nobody, you really
something's
think
going
something
on, right?
happened.
So, well, you know, truly the Kingston area, that side of it up there is predominantly for Chinook, and the pinks and the coho like to hang out on the other side and out in front of Shilshole and whatnot. I just like using the Kingston launch from going out of here because it's an hour and a half drive. It's an hour and a half drive to go to Shilshole if you get up early enough and fight your way through traffic, but coming home it's 3 to 4 hours, and I just don't have that kind of time. Ain't nobody got that.
That's why I don't fish up here. Oh, now I remember.
The traffic, right? So anyway, we got out on the water. It was blowing pretty good. I pulled up my app and looked at tidesforfishing.com. If you haven't checked out that one, I'm telling you, weather, tides, lunar schedule, it actually gives you a dial in that tells you exactly how many minutes are left in the tide, which direction is going. As far as up to current data on your location, it is fantastic. And so fish, tides, the number 4, fishing.com. Anyway, pulled it up and it said 9 to 11, gusts of 15 to 16. And I thought, oh, this is going to be fun. So we got out there, it was a little sporty. I mean, I got the 18-foot Raider, right, the 182, and it does good. It rides pretty smooth, but when you're getting, you know, knocked around like that, it's tough to keep the gear running good. And
the wind's the one thing you can't beat. I fished in snow, ice, every single weather condition, but that wind, if you can't keep that gear running straight, and then you're crab walking into the wind.
It was a little tough. You know, we're fishing 3 rigs, and we're bouncing around. And we ended up losing a coho, and we caught a coho and a couple other drive-bys. It wasn't exactly on fire. We're not marking a lot of fish. It should have been polluted with pinks, and we should have seen fish all throughout the water column up down to 90 to 100 feet. Just really well. I was intel with the phone, talking to guys, getting a hold of Matt Messing, who we'll have on later in the show, who's been fishing Area 10, and he got it. He's like, well, I'm not out there today. Well, he was off, but he was like, oh, Augusta 15, yeah, that's going to be pretty challenging. I mean, he gets it. That wind blowing through that particular area past Shilshole and the oil tanks and whatnot, it gets a little tossed. So we had a bit of a tough go, ended up getting 1 fish, wasn't anything spectacular, but it was another day on the water to give it a go. And then Of course, I put a post up here the other day. I ventured down to the Puyallup with my son Jordan, aka the Beard, and we had a little bit of a go there. I'll get into that in a second, but bouncing around and just, trying to get on as many fisheries as we can when opportunity presents itself, and hopefully you guys are out there doing the same. Again, Willapa is favorable and getting better. Area 10, we'll have Matt on as we close the show out. He's got some really good reports the last couple of days. Of course, yesterday it was beautiful, flat, calm, no wind, and the fish were kind of back in that area. He was sending me pictures of his electronics with the pinks on there. He's like, this is what you should have been seeing. I'm like, well, I can guarantee you that is not what we were seeing. So,
well, you can't cherry pick the nice weather.
No,
especially
it's just you go.
When the fish are there, and you never know when those are going to close.
No.
So you gotta fish on those days, and sometimes you're the hero.
Oh, yeah.
You get into those fish when nobody else is
We've
out
had
there.
some really good days up there, and we've had other days too. I put notes on here talking with Matt later in the show. It's Area 10, is it on fire or is it fickle? Because there's days where I go up there and I'm like, what in the heck is going on? And other days you're just like knocking them out of the park. So anyway, we'll get into that a little bit later. Following up on last week's discussion with Tyler Como from CCA, we talked a little bit about, or pretty extensively actually, on the agreed to fishery, gill net commercial fishery, excuse me, that was being conducted on the Columbia River, targeting Chinook with encounters of summer run steelhead. Dave, it's no secret that going into this season, we knew the summer run steelhead numbers are going to be extremely low.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the concern there was, and we had a discussion, I've had discussions on the phone with WDFW, and I had said last week we were hoping to have them on. This week, there's a few things in discussion with WDFW that they've are trying to arrange their schedules to actually come in studio, sit down and have these conversations. So I forego the phone conversation tonight to back up our conversation last week with Tyler in regards to this particular gillnet fishery, in the fact that we'll have them in studio in the next few weeks, hopefully, and we'll just dial in a handful of things relative to commercial fisheries, agreed to fisheries, conservation constraints that give you concern. So backing up to the steelhead deal, they actually met yesterday again. Those that direct policy and within guidelines of achieving this 5 evenings of gillnet fishery on the Columbia, 9-inch mesh for the Chinook. And the impacts on the steelhead, again, are unknown, but they downgraded the forecast of big concern. They're down to 86,000 now for the return on the steelhead to upper east side and beyond. And so that was a number significant enough to say they're not gonna perform the 5th night of commercial fishing, excuse me, on this gillnet fishery. And they're also going to keep the closures on recreational steelhead fishing that are currently in existence until October 1st. So those areas that are not fishing anyway are now definitely closed until October 1 as it relates to steelhead. And they did not do the 5th evening. But again, it brings to light the frustration I have and many others, and WDFW will explain why. They use models of data gathered in 2017 when they had on board observing of these commercial gillnet fisheries out in the Columbia and the encounters with steelhead. And again, as I was informed, the commercial fishermen are not allowed to keep those steelhead. They must release everyone, dead or alive, doesn't matter. And I asked, are they keeping track of those, or is there any reason to track the number of encounters, or do you even care? They said, no, we're not doing that. Why don't you have observers on board? It is now apparently an insurance deal. And the attorneys were in litigation about this insurance practices and having the protection if WDFW employees are to be out on these private commercial boats. So a lot of politics mixed in there. WDFW has expressed that they do want to have this conversation, and they're going to walk down the path of how they come to agreement on these fisheries, why there's gillnets in the Columbia in pursuit of the Chinook, which there seems to be a pretty bountiful return of Chinook, so I get that.
They've screwed up the forecast.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm glad they erred on the conservative,
absolutely,
as opposed to the big high number and stuff. And I don't know why you'd ever want to over calculate, but they really undercalculated it. And I'm hoping that they're going to watch it and they're going to leave that river open longer this year, because we got hosed last year. Yeah. And then 2 years ago we just didn't have a good run. So opening it after all those fish have passed doesn't help us.
Well, and then they have to come back to the table, and all user groups have to be involved. Unfortunately, they've already recognized the concern for the steelhead as it relates to dropping gill nets in to go after these Chinook. So if you cannot fish selectively, especially when we have constraints on low emerging runs and protection measures are needed and are in place on the recreational side and now for the commercial side, albeit they pulled it out one day early, that shouldn't preclude recreational opportunity where there's opportunity to be had. If there's an abundance of Chinook and we're not encountering a ton of steelhead, every once in a while you get one on a trolled herring, but it's very infrequent. So they cannot attach a high mortality rate or incidental run-ins with steelhead in this Chinook fishery and or now what's recognized as a coho fishery.
Yeah.
Call it a coho fishery. Guys on there are putting back a ton. Dave Sham put a post up today or yesterday. Percentage of encounters with wild coho is 70%. This mark selected fishery is not working. If you have a mark selected fishery, you should be 70% encounters of the fish, the fish you're going after.
I mean, it should be half. You should
50-50 at a minimum.
Yeah.
It's 70-30 hands down when you talk to everybody on this thing. And it's no different out in Westport, out in Waco, wherever you're fishing in the salt, same thing happens. You return all these coho, and a high percentage of them, it's a fatal deal. You're using bait.
Well, what I'm finding is that the A-run early fish are way more wild than hatchery.
Yep.
Then the B-run are more hatchery than wild. So you almost want to have that first 3 weeks be the just kill two, because you're not going to get those hatchery or enough hatchery coho. That way you're not killing the wild ones, and then switch it over.
Yep.
And then, if there's wild ones, we'll go through them, but they're so few and far between in a lot of those B runs that come in the tribs, and that's the fish we really are looking for. We're getting so many early fish right now, which tells me that's a good sign that we're going to have a bigger run, which they forecast.
Yes, yeah.
And that's thanks a lot to the Canadian fisheries not taking all the fish out there like Alaska did.
Right.
So I'm really hopeful for the coho that are coming in, but we can't use the old numbers. We can't use the old formulas that we're trying to protect the unclipped fish, because the unclipped coho are going like crazy.
The number right now is off the charts, and it's a valid point. There have been many who have advocated for years on these high return years, and when they come in high numbers early like they are, it should be a 2 and done. You're going to have far less encounters. The mortality rate percentages will go down the drain,
and
versus
less Chinook mortality also, because now we're not going
encountering all the Chinook.
If we're getting our limit quicker, it helps all the fish, and I don't know why they're not doing it.
Absolutely. Okay, with that, along with the recognized Columbia restraint on the steelhead, they do have some other things that they announced the last few days. So for rivers that they had already designated opportunity on steelhead, the Walla Walla and the Grand Ron, you are now reduced to a 1 fish limit on your steelhead starting September 1st until further notice. And also on the Snake River, this is interesting too, they also put kind of a slot limit in. You cannot keep a steelhead, you must release, it requires a release of steelhead 28 inches or greater.
I'd have to take a fish out of the river and
measure it.
Which is really bad for them. They actually passed a law saying you're not supposed to do that. So that would be really difficult.
Well, these are hatchery fish.
Yeah.
Right. So on the Snake, you cannot keep a steelhead, a hatchery steelhead, over 28 inches. They got to get those bigger fish for their egg take, and that's just kind of how they conduct business there. But those rivers, those 3 that I just mentioned, the Walla Walla, the Snake, of course, and the Grand Ron, are now reduced to a 1 fish limit. Some other things that are actually going on, some other opportunities you may want to take advantage of if you're up north. Announced today, Snohomish River opens. David's pretty excited about this, for 3 days for pink retention, and you get to keep 1 fish. So you got 3 days to get out there to get your pink salmon.
If you can't do that, just throw your gear in the garage.
Yeah, so open from September 1st to September 3rd. Now, they did indicate that they're going to monitor the run size. If it continues to perform well, they're going to extend and open additional days to give you opportunity. You also can catch and retain a hatchery coho as well. So either a pink or a single coho, 3 days of opportunity on the Snohomish. I get it. They're trying their hardest to give us opportunity where it fits within the model. So, you know, you can look at it and laugh and go, what a joke. Or if you're up there and that's in your backyard and you got 3 days to go, you know, grab a fish, go try to get some coho. I mean, spend the day fishing and just see how you do. Addition to that, the Lewis River reopens for Chinook salmon. That's down by you.
Yep, and I'll tell you what, it's a bright spot in a otherwise really kind of a bad summer, and we don't know what the fall is going to have, so it's nice to have that fishery, and those Chinook, there's some big fish that come through.
In that, Lewis. So they closed it, if you remember, because they were concerned about getting egg take for the springers. Once you hit August 31st, they can confidently open it up and say they're not going to encounter any more springers. If they don't have egg take at the hatchery, they're not going to get it. So it's open for fall Chinook September 1st through the 30th with a limit of 6 fish, of 4, which 4 can be adult. So you can actually get 2 adult hatchery Chinook, 2 adult hatchery coho in your possession limit. 6 fish total.
Which is kind of weird, and I'll tell you why. Because the deadline as of now for Chinook retention is above the Lewis. So when you go up there to Warrior Rock, that's where you can start fishing and retaining a Chinook, because we're protecting the tules that are in the Lewis and the Kalama and whatever. Well, but once they hit the river, suddenly they're free game.
Apparently.
I'm not really understanding what the deadline is there for, if they're not going to protect the fish entirely, or, you know, and I'm hoping they open the Lower River. The last 2 years in that Longview to, you know, Woodland area, we haven't had a fishery. We've had to go all up above Woodland, and then you've got 5,000 boats. It looks like Buoy 10 up there. With the wind and the current and all those boats, I mean, it's a washing machine.
Yeah.
So they're putting all those people in there, that whole section all the way up to like the 205 bridge. You've got 5,000 boats in there trying to get those fish.
Right.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I'm hoping it's all good. Well, so if they're going to give us those fish, and that's another fishery that we can fish that's not going to be closed, then they're trying. But it's a little confusing.
I look at it as you got 30 days of opportunity now in the Lewis, which again is almost in your backyard. Those can be some really big, healthy fall run Chinook that are in great shape. Those coho that enter that river can be fantastic as well. You got a 4 fish adult limit. We haven't seen lucrative limits in a long time. No. A lot of folks are fishing in Puyallup and taking away 4 fish, because typically every year for the last multiple cycles, every 2 years when we have that humpy opportunity on our odd years, your adult retention or your retention, they worded it differently over the course of time, but you're looking at 4 fish. You could get, but no more than 2 coho, or a coho and a Chinook, and then you could have, I always refer to them as 2 bonus humpies, right? Yeah. So you get your 2 bonus humpies, or you just take 4 humpies or whatever. And so now, yeah, I know, funny. What are you, kindergarten?
He said bonus humpy.
Bonus humpy. Yeah.
Okay, well, but here's that's a fishery I've done, and had a blast
on
with
the
those
Puyallup.
pigs. Yes. Yeah. Went up there, and it's the first time I'd ever done it, and it was a blast. I mean, and this isn't snagging. They're actually taking these jigs, and they were super aggressive. We got in on a push that was maybe 3,000 or 4,000 fish. That between what I counted going by, what I saw caught, and what we got, it was a great fishery, and it was very one of those. Hey, we only get a few days of this, so get in on it because it's not going to last.
So again, I look at the you got a month on the Lewis, a limit of 4 adults. That's fantastic, and I think we'll see kind of a rolling process here. WDFW, to their credit, has gotten much more aggressive about in-season management and adjustments where it makes sense. And the Lewis is a prime example. They're going to open that thing up, and here's your opportunity on some very healthy and robust fish with decent numbers. Now, that being said, if they get a couple weeks into it and it's underperforming, they're going to cut back on. But they have the ability now to make those adjustments. Their Fish Washington app that you should have on your phone will have that information as soon as they put it out there. Anytime you have adjustments in your fishery, the rock you're standing on, and with your GPS, you can pull up your location. It will tell you instantly what the actual retention limit is. So there's no worry about, I can't remember, I left my reg book at home and I don't know if they changed it or not. Download the Fish Washington app onto your phone and carry that with you wherever you go. It doesn't matter what body of water you are on. It will have the rules and regulations and current retention status within your pocket. So, take a little advice and do that. Speaking of the Puyallup, they opened a few days ago this last week a new boat slide. Now down in Oregon, they're polluted with boat slides. Been using them for years.
Awesome.
The majority, like 99.9%, has said this is the first of its kind in Washington State. I saw a couple other folks chimed in and said, no, there's one other one, so I have no idea where it's at. But On the Puyallup River, they've introduced a new boat slide. Both, it's two for two purposes. One for rescue, which our department will use when needed to put our inflatable rigid hulls out there and perform water rescue on the Puyallup River and around, and or to take out at that same location, and for recreational. Now, I am making tons of phone calls. I've been in contact with a handful of folks. There is a lot of stuff going on in the Puyallup that a lot of people would be very excited about. I, in particular, also am, even though I live down here in Olympia now, because that's my home waters. I grew up fishing Puyallup River, Carbon River, and South Prairie Creek. Most people don't even know where South Prairie Creek is, but I'm telling you, up to the time I was 16, 17 years old, the wild steelhead in there was unbelievable. My dad had me fishing that. So the fact that they are kind of rebuilding opportunity on the Puyallup River. Years ago, when we started going down the road of all these hatchery cutbacks and gene bank pools and all that, and I'm all for bringing back our wild fish where we can, where it makes sense. When you start telling me we're going to cut back on hatchery production to bring the wild steelhead back in the calids, I'll tell you go pack sand. Yeah. That ain't going to happen.
I think that's the least popular agreement that anybody, well, and it wasn't an agreement. They didn't want to do that. So you can't put that all on Fish and Wildlife. We know that wasn't the case, but that one was the one that made no sense whatsoever.
So certain rivers need to be looked upon as a put and take opportunity for vast majority of recreational folks that reside within those areas, and just give folks the opportunity to go fish, harvest fish, fill their freezers, have fun, make it about hatchery fish in, hatchery fish out, and stop thinking all these rivers are coming back. There is tons of pristine water out there that'll still support wild fish. We have a lot of work to do in habitat restoration. That goes without saying. But there are rivers that should be looked upon as just that. In the Puyallup, back in the day, I was like, there's no way. That bottom end of that river is diked and made for channeling water through the city in flood control. You have way too much population density, way too much industry, light industry throughout the flats down there in Puyallup. And that high water events, when we get them, can be disastrous. And so that thing is made to move water. That being said, the upper reaches of the Puyallup River watershed, up above Voight's Creek, up above the Little Puyallup, up above the Carbon, up above all these small tributaries that feed in, are still teeming with life and unobstructed. And, a lot of that is still farmland out in that area, albeit some of the farmland is being converted to housing developments. And I hope they continue to monitor that and don't let it get completely out of control. That's been the demise of so many of our watersheds, is that, urban sprawl just gets out there. We change the landscape. We get rid of all the shade along the creeks, which gets to be
farming,
warm water.
Pesticides,
all those things, right? Yeah. So there's still a lot of healthy rearing ground up there for wild fish and whatnot. So, but with that, there are changes coming about. The historic trout hatchery that's downtown Puyallup, that's been there since early 1900s, is being converted to a salmon and steelhead hatchery. I don't have the exact numbers of the amounts of fish they're kicking out, but we're talking in the hundreds of thousands of springers. We're talking a couple 100,000 broodstock steelhead. The Voight's Creek hatchery was rebuilt after the flood devastation of years ago. It is now starting to produce more fish, and the numbers apparently are going to be going up. So my intent is to get all this dialed in, exact numbers, what the proposed plan is for the next 5 to 10 years on the Puyallup system. There are additional boat slides going in. There's talks of a lower river boat ramp finally getting put in. If they are able to accomplish all that in the next 5, maybe even 10 years, I don't know. Let's say 5 years. You could actually turn that river, which is now surrounded by thousands of people, into a destination that people would go fish and have a great time exposing, families and folks to fishing once again on the mighty Puyallup, and utilize it as a resource to give people opportunity to get out and fish. I'm all for it. If they're going to build these hatchery numbers on that Puyallup system, working cohesively with the Puyallup and the Muckleshoot tribes in the co-management plan, and WDFW is on board, and we're going to get you all those statistics and data and all that information. But that stuff is coming, and it's pretty exciting to think so.
Yeah, any of these rivers that, we've lost our runs on, that are just at the tail end of them. I mean, you can't hurt what's not there.
Right.
And we get in the discussion of wild or unclipped and all that thing. Truly wild fish are so far gone at this point. The first hatchery, when it went in 1895, then suddenly we didn't have, wild fish on that system and all throughout the systems. And so, I think a lot of people think they want to help the wild fish, and what they don't realize is that those are just two hatchery fish that are making babies, right?
We've talked about it a lot on this show, and other folks on other shows as well, but the carpet bombing of Chambers Creek Chinook strain throughout the Pacific Northwest and Puget Sound has diluted the true genetic strain of any particular river.
I think we lost 5 runs just off that initial loss. There was the Wind River, I think, the Cowlitz, which was the worst, and then some of the tribs. Well, and they're doing that on the Kalama. So that's one thing I was going to tell you. This is the first year in 20 years I didn't get a summer steelhead on the Kalama.
Right.
Not one.
Right.
And turns out they didn't plant them last year because they're getting ready to plant this new strain that they're calling a Kalama strain.
Well, it's a brood stocking within basin. So at least we're following that model and pursuing the opportunity to, we're going to build these runs based off of the recognized genetic strain of fish that now is within that basin. Which, hey, if moving forward, if that's what we need to do to bring fish runs back in selective basins, great, because that's the only option we have.
Right. What I'm saying is it wasn't bad.
Oh yeah.
It was really good.
It was really good.
So I'm wondering why the fix if it's not broken. There's so many other rivers that need help.
Yeah.
And the Kalama summer steelhead was perfect. The right number. Everybody always had fish. It was a great run. It was a healthy run. It was no issues. And then they decide they're going to change it just out of nowhere, and then not to plant them last year. Yeah. So this year I fished my whole early season and didn't see anything. I thought, and this is before they put the trap in.
Yeah.
I mean, that river dies when they put that trap in. But
well, if they are gearing up to do that in-basin brood stocking, we got to wait 3 or 4 years to see it take hold. And then the rivers start teeming with fish. Okay, great. We had to sit on the sidelines for a year or 2 or 3, and then hopefully they come back. So, all right, that kind of jumps us around a number of topics and things worth well mentioning. Got some options, and we got some closures. We got some opportunity out there. Keep up on your regs. If you haven't gone to WDFW, get your weekly emails and get your updates so you can keep on top of all this stuff. You should probably do that. Dave, we're going to jump out for a quick break. We come back. We're going to dial it in with a little bit on Mr. Calhoun here. What you've been doing the last 5.5 years or so in your time at GPS, some of your successes, some of your good memories you have, and we want to talk about Northwest Rods and what the future holds for Northwest Rods and where you're going with that and how busy you're getting, and just whatever else you got going on and what the future holds for Dave Calhoun. So we will jump out for a quick break. We come back. Dave Calhoun, more of Big Dave Calhoun right here on FHM.
At Metal Supermarkets, we understand your need for fast access to a wide variety of metals, so we've made it easy. Our network of stores carries a wide variety of metal in all different types, shapes, sizes, and grades, with no required minimum order size. Who could ask for more? Simply tell us your dimensions online, on the phone, or in store, and we'll cut or process the metal to your desired size, often while you wait. We offer same-day service and can deliver the metal right to your door or job site. We even source hard-to-find metals, so no matter what you're looking for, Metal Supermarkets can provide it for you. And we're conveniently located with brick-and-mortar stores in Seattle and Portland, so you can check out our extensive stock for yourself. Superior customer service is guaranteed. Quality service from real people who know metal. We are the small quantity metal experts. To place an order, simply call a store to talk to one of our knowledgeable customer service representatives. Fill out a quote request online, order off of our e-commerce website, or visit one of our many locations and pick out the metal you want. Whether you're a small or large business, government, homeowner, or hobbyist, we make it easy for you to buy the exact metal and just the amount you need. We've been doing this for over 30 years, so we know how to get it done. Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for metal. Visit or call a Metal Supermarket store near you today.
Hey, welcome back to Fish on Northwest, Wayne England, and my guest co-host, Dave Calhoun, joining me this evening, and, well, here you are.
Thank you for having me, bud.
Thank you for having me. I called you just a couple days ago. Some plans fell through, and I needed a co-host, and I was like, well, you ain't doing nothing, so other than running your rod shop.
No, I got a wide open schedule. I got weekends off for the next 30 years or so.
Let's back up and talk about that. You want to back all the way up to where we met, or do you want to back up to your time at GPS?
Let's talk about where we met.
That's a pretty funny story.
I'm going to say 7, 8 years, maybe 9 years ago.
It would be 10 years ago.
Okay, so 10 years ago, they were doing a thing called Wanted Outdoor Show host. And it was basically looking for somebody to host an outdoor show, and I've always wanted to do that.
At the time through Comcast Sportsnet.
Yes, it was like a contest, game show, a little bit of everything, and I wasn't sure. They really didn't give us a lot of specifics.
Right.
Just you applied, you showed up at the Rose Garden at the old Memorial Coliseum, and there were about, I'd say probably 150, 200 people that were there, and I ended up sitting next to Dwayne, and so we just started talking and hit it off, and we were talking about our careers and everything that we were doing to that point, and really had a great time. He ended up going on the show. I realized it was more of a survivor kind of a contest versus someone who'd go out there and talk fishing.
Right.
And so I didn't make it past the first round. Yeah, they didn't tell us anything.
I didn't know.
They said pack a bag, be ready to go, and so we just
question for 2 weeks if you're selected.
Oh yeah, I didn't make any plans, so I didn't make it, and then I don't see Dwayne again for a while, and then I see him on Northwest Wild Country, and shortly after that I got on Outdoor GPS. And we ended up on the same network right before and after each other on
crazy
different programs, and we've been fishing buddies ever since. And so so we've known each other quite a while, and this crazy business, and I've come and done your show, and you've come and done mine, and so we've had a really good professional working relationship.
Right. And spent time off camera, obviously, fishing and doing whatever. And, just some Saturday morning sitting in the duck blind with you, or on the river in the drift boat, or wherever, and other opportunities. You've been out with me and made some videos over the years. And I've always kept in contact, and similar paths in industry, and it all started out sitting next to some random dude in a Coliseum, waiting to figure out if we're going to get chosen for this competition or not. So,
I think it's 10 years later, and look where we're at. We're still talking fishing.
Still talking fishing in a studio at an unknown location. So, you then auditioned for and were selected. I was really happy to see when you were the one selected to join Owen on Outdoor GPS, and you spent 5.5, 6 years there. Yeah,
5.5 years, and all good. I mean, I have nothing to say but nice things about the people there at the network, and I had a blast. And when I first came on the show, it was to be the co-host and actually do studio stuff. Well, Owen doesn't take a lot of days off.
No, he doesn't.
You really don't get to interact as much. So I thought, hey, what would be cool is we could do a live report. So I ended up just calling in for the first one and just saying, hey, I'm out fishing on the river, and gave a report. Then I figured out the FaceTime app on iPhone.
Yeah.
And I thought, if we could figure out a way to do the video, then I could have a live report. No satellite truck, no audio guy, no, all the money required to do a real live satellite feed.
Yeah. Just
using your cell phone.
Yeah.
And then exploring where I can do that, how to boost the signal, and just turning it into an actual segment as opposed to just a one-time type deal.
When it worked, it became very popular. Fish Time with Dave live from unknown location every Saturday and Sunday for over 5 years. I mean, you traveled around and met and fished and hunted with a lot of folks. 580
episodes.
Seriously?
Yeah.
580
every
episodes.
Saturday and Sunday, and more because I would do a Thursday or Friday. But every Saturday and Sunday for the last 5.5 years.
Yeah.
So you figure 102 a week, 5 years. That's that's 510, and then plus just a lot. And my favorite memories are all of them.
Yeah.
The places I got to go fish rivers I'd never fished.
Right.
I got to fish with new people all the time. And the viewers were so awesome because they were willing to. I could just get a message, hey, we're going to go fish this river. Do you want to go? Yeah, I do. I mean, I rarely say no to a fishing trip.
Sure.
One time when I was 12, I turned one down, and my dad came home with 2 big salmon. I said, never again.
Never again.
Never again am I missing out. That fear of missing out, missing that bite, or them coming back with limits just keeps you getting up at 3 in the morning and just saying yes. And fishing when there's no fish, fishing early in the seasons. And
there's also the coordination of being able to do that live fish time albeit from a location where even with your backpack super nuclear signal that you would carry around with that monstrous antenna and battery pack, you still had to get a decent enough signal that you could do a report or have a discussion with Owen on air live, because it was live. And sometimes that would put some constraints on to where you could go, or you would have to do it from a location, and then afterwards you'd get in the boat and actually go spend the day fishing or whatever.
Well, yeah,
right?
Work the lower river for the show, then
Right.
go upriver where the fish are. And I mean, I've gotten over the last 6 years to know where I can and can't get service.
yeah.
If there's a canyon, no. It doesn't get signal where there's no signal.
Right.
It actually has to boost a regular signal to transmit video and stuff. So the limitations, and not only that, trying to get a fish to bite at 820.
Yeah.
You know, the restraints on trying to do that.
Right.
There's so many things I was putting into that to try to fit that little window. And, you know, people are asking me, why do you leave the show? Well, there's so much more I want to do
Right.
that I can't fit in a little 5-minute window, a little live window.
Sure.
You know, I want to go over riggings, and I want to go over doing things, and there's just not enough time in that little live segment to do that. And so, you know, I'm telling people, I'm not going to stop doing what I've been doing.
Right.
I'm just going to change the way I do it.
Just taking a little break.
And I don't have to do it live on Saturday and Sunday.
Which is
if I want to
nice.
fish on Wednesday, if I want to talk about, and the other thing is promoting Northwest rods. So the deal with the network was that you don't promote your own business, and I got that.
Sure.
And I never, you know, crossed the line and ever just talked about my rods. We had great sponsors, and so I made sure that they were taken care of as far as sponsorship for the show, and luckily we had some great sponsors.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I didn't need to talk about them necessarily, but things have changed recently.
Right.
And my business is growing, and I just can't keep doing both that way.
Yeah.
I have to switch the way I do
Well,
stuff.
now you're putting 100% of your time, for the time being, into Northwest Rods. You've relocated to a bigger building right off the freeway. It's very recognizable. You got some stuff going on, so people are going to make sure they drive by and don't miss it. You're going to put some signage out.
Oh, yeah. So
You're
I got
going
things
crazy.
coming. I've got a
Yeah.
Connex building coming. I'm going to light that sucker up like the 4th of July. I mean,
Right.
and we've got this huge parking lot. I'm thinking about having like big tackle sales,
Mm-hmm.
maybe having a little mini sportsman show there in the parking lot. And the new building I've been working on for 6 years.
Trying to get it.
This. Yeah, this location was sitting empty for 6 years trying to get it. And
I
now
can't
that
tell you how
have
many
it,
times you told me when we would drive by it, you'd be like, that's the building, I'm telling you.
And persistence pays
Yeah.
off. I'll tell you what, if you have persistence, you stay on things, don't just take no for an answer and get on them, you know, you're usually rewarded. And that's where I've always been with, you know, whatever I'm doing. But that building will allow me to expand my business. I was telling you in the break, we bought another rod company.
Yeah.
And so now I've doubled what I can build.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't know, you know, because maybe they don't have the cable system and don't even know that I build rods and that they're American-made blanks
Yeah.
that we build in Woodland, and that I have a rod business and stuff. So it's time to stop being courteous to my sponsors and all that stuff and really start promoting my own business, because it's getting really big, and the sky's the limit right now.
Well, you specialize in a number of rods that are specific to certain types of fisheries on the Columbia River. You have walleye rods, you do trout and kokanee, steelhead rods, float and drift fishing, sturgeon rods, tuna. You're pretty well rounded. Is there anything you're not building? As far as I know, I can't think of something that you wouldn't, or even just go ahead and build some custom rods if somebody put a specific order in.
Well, that's the thing. The nice thing about, you know, buying this other company is I have 700 different patterns. So they may not be for the Northwest, and it may not be one that I make a huge number of, but we've got 4-piece travel, like spay rods. I'm not a spay guy. I like fly fishing, but I'm not a spay guy, but I can build a heck of a spay rod.
Yeah.
And for half of what you'd pay for another American-made spay rod. So that's not my specialty, but I can build something really nice. And right now we've got coho coming in. So my twitch and jig rod, which that's a specific fishery for us. I don't know anywhere else where you twitch for coho. You know, it's similar to a bass rod, but there's a lot of differences. And that's something that's a specialty fishery for us. So not only are they built in the Northwest, they're for the Northwest.
What makes a twitching rod? If I just go to the store and get a 2-piece 8.5-foot spinning rod that's like a 8 to 17 pound rod weight, I mean, that's going to get it done. But What is different about a rod that you designed, built specifically for twitch and jigs, that's going to make that much difference, and then me buying like an ugly stick?
Well, unless you absolutely have to go with a 2-piece, you should go 1-piece. 1-piece rod will always outperform a 2-piece
What length are you making that? Is it
7'9" to 7'6"?
Okay.
And I can even go shorter. There's guys say want a 7-footer. That's great. I can lop it off the bottom. It's not going to affect the action. It needs to be a fast action rod. It needs to be sensitive enough that I can feel the bottom with that jig. That's what that ugly stick won't do.
Right.
Fiberglass rods are not sensitivity rods. They're action rods. So if I'm in a sturgeon fish, you're going to see the bite. You won't feel it, but you'll see it in that tip, right? And that rod will last you your whole life. I mean, those things are just solid pieces of fiberglass.
Bomb-proof, right?
The performance end of it is the fact that my rod weighs half as much. So when you go out twitching and you spend 6-8 hours doing that, you're going to feel it with that heavy rod.
Yeah.
So lighter rod, less fatigue on your arm. 1-piece rod outperforms it. The action in it needs to be a fast action. These fish, when they hit, they don't nibble.
No.
They freight train.
They freight train it.
So I have to feel that bottom jig hit the bottom.
Yep.
So sensitivity has to be there. And then when that thing rips it out of your hands, you have to be able to pull them out of the sticks and not let them get, because as soon as they get that thing, you see them spin and right into the trees.
Yep.
I have to be able to stop that fish. Heavier line, 30-pound braid. They are not line shy. And the reason twitch and jigs work better than spinners, plugs, I mean, I've got buddies that throw mag lips and catch them. But the reason those twitch and jigs work better is because they stay in the strike zone. So when I'm pulling a spinner, and you've all seen this, that coho will come out and then it'll turn off.
Yeah.
They take it out of the zone and then they move because you've taken it out of the zone. Well, that twitch and jig stays in the zone longer. It doesn't run away like a spinner or a plug. So they hit it, and you have less missed fish. They're more aggressive with it, and I don't sit there and see the fish steering away from it as I'm getting to the boat.
7.5 foot, 7'9", 1-piece. What's the line weight on it? And that's a cork or a graphite handle?
Yes and yes. 8 to 17, and it needs to be even air towards the side of heavier.
Sure.
There again, it's not about the bite. It's about the action and being able to rip that fish out of there. A lot of guys underfish the rod, or should overfish the rod, and it's underweight, so that they'll break those fish off. And coho are the hardest. They're harder on Chinook on rods, mainly because guys are bank fishing for them, and they try to net them themselves.
Good point, yeah.
And they get that high stick. So what happens is they reel them up, and they got that fish right there, and they're all by themselves. So they do this thing above their head to try and get the fish closer, or they set their rod down and whack it against the rocks, and then they can't get that fish up to them. And then the fish takes off, and they grab a hold of the rod. We've all done it. Then snap. I know you did. And then snap right where your hand goes.
Sure.
You change the action of that rod, and that thing snaps. And, well, broke on a fish.
Yeah.
Is that a warranty?
Yeah, well.
No.
I don't know Northwest rods. So
well,
I guess.
It's a 1-piece rod. You're going to put a tip top on it.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, is that those fish are harder because of the way they fight, how aggressive, and when they get up to the bank, I mean, they just go crazy. They'll flip around on the line, putting pressure on the rod if you're holding it, break the tips. I've had more high stick breaks from coho in the fall than any other fish.
Is that right?
Hands down.
Interesting. Well, and the structure too. If you're fishing some of our lower rivers around here, especially out towards the coast and whatnot, you get around all that woody debris and structure. Them coho love that stuff, and you go twitching around that stuff and don't have a rod with a good enough backbone to yard them out of there. You're gonna break rods against structure and fish, or you're just gonna lose a bunch of fish that you're not getting out of the structure.
I make rods that are specific to a lot of different fishing fisheries and ways we fish. There are some that bleed over into other ones. Like that twitch and jig rod isn't just twitch and jig. It's everything coho. It's throwing plugs, because if I have a mag lip, you got to have something heavy enough at the tip to be able to throw a 3/4 ounce or a 1 ounce jig.
Yeah, good point.
Or a mag lip, or spoons.
Right.
So it's a spinners, big, heavy, like number 5, Blue Fox, that type of thing.
So that rod will do it all.
It'll do everything coho related, just like that. The only thing it really doesn't do is float fish, because it's not long enough.
Well, it's too short. Yeah.
It would work in a pinch, but it's multi-purpose for doing all those for coho and steelhead. So it's not just one specific
It's all relative.
one.
If you're 3 feet tall, that rod is perfectly.
What's that like, Dwayne?
I don't know. David? Oh, the rod is perfectly ample. That is a flow rod for David Butternuts. That is, yeah. So, okay. What? Why? Anyway, so lots of opportunity on the horizon for Northwest rods. You're busy. Folks are coming into the shop, which is nice to see, asking for specific rods. You got a line of rods. I mean, like I said, the nice thing is you've spent a lot of time on the water over the years doing a lot of different fisheries. And when you do that particular fishery, you wrap your head around and go, you know what, this is the kind of rod that needs to be built for this type of fishery. Your scorpion rods are a prime example on the Pro Troll series, and how well that rod actually adds cadence and action to the presentation versus just another rod dragging a Pro Troll.
Yeah, and luckily I'm out there 200 days of the year, and when I do that, I go, oh, I see how this rod loads up, and graphite does this, and the fiberglass loads up slower and doesn't whip it right, and so it was a happy accident to come up with that rod and be able to use new material, a new design, because nobody was making a 9-foot one-piece rod for doing what we were doing. And when I put the two together, it whipped a Pro Troll different than anything else. And I've never said that any of my rods would catch more fish than another company's or even my own until that Scorpion salmon rod came out. And when I saw what it did with the Pro Troll and whipping whatever your presentation was forward just a little bit, it was a game changer, and that's my number one rod right now. I mean, I can't keep.
Well, you got the statistical data to back it up. You guys would fish rods side by side, same exact presentation in the water, albeit Pro Troll and whatever you were dragging behind, and just to see if it was the action of the rod creating or stimulating the bite, and it was hands down. You recorded time and time again.
We got lucky though. The only time you can do that is when you're on a biomass of fish.
Well, you have to have fish to prove.
You have to have a lot of fish, like 30, 40 fish days.
Sure.
We had 4 days where we were just unreal, and we started playing with different things and even different color flashers. Mm-hmm. And nothing worked as good as the original this and the the Mexican flag that. And we dialed this in to not only the rods, but to the type of flasher and the type of spinner and the length of leader. I mean, it was really just, you were able to do that. And then you go, let's try this. And you put something out and it's the only one not getting touched. You go, okay, well, this is what they want. Right. That doesn't always mean that's what they want, but it was a way to tune that in and realize that rod was doing something.
Couple things. Scott Hensley was asking or inquiring kokanee rods, and I'm like, absolutely. If you were participated in our live show or live event down at Sportco, which you donated, by the way, to kokanee rods, one piece, 8-footers, fantastic rods. I was looking at them going, I don't know if I'm going to give these away. I might just stick them in my gear room. But for a couple of the guys that won those rods, extremely happy to get their hands on them. And you have a fantastic line of kokanee rods. I helped you sell a bunch of them at the Sportsman Show, all different wrap colors and options. You got your Oregon Duck fans and your Beaver fans, and
that's one rod I do a lot of colors on, because there's a lot of different people that want different things.
Right.
But to have a kokanee rod like that, I'm lucky that I manufacture my own blanks, or I wouldn't be able to do this. But for $99 for an American-made kokanee rod, nobody can touch me. I mean, you can't normally build a rod like that for $100 unless you're building your own blank.
Right.
I got a smoking deal on the parts.
Yeah, you did.
As companies go out of business, and I don't wish that upon anybody, but as companies go out of business, sometimes there's opportunities to come in and buy stuff out and get on things. And I kind of like the Fred Sanford of fishing rods. Like, I can come in there and take somebody else's junk and put it on an awesome blank and save people money. Yeah. That I'm moving through inventory. They're getting an awesome rod, a U.S.-made fiberglass kokanee rod, and it performs whether you're flatlining, whether you're running downriggers or whatever you're doing. And I've got people out there that are just killing it. And once again, one-piece rod, always outperforming two-piece rods. They're those rods that will last a lifetime if you take care of them.
Real quick, we got to jump out for a break, but I got a question here from Larry Stamp. What is the claim to fame? What are we doing? Oh my gosh! What is the claim to fame on your blanks?
Oh, well, so they're made in Woodland, so that's number one. They're designed by me. They're not anybody else's designs. So I went through, and instead of just putting a different label on the same old stuff, I flip-flopped things. I changed patterns. So I have control over my blanks. Yep. And then, obviously there's a lot of R&D that goes into designing a blank, but I was lucky that the people I'm working with have been able to help me. And it would have cost me $2 million to start a blank company and try from scratch like that. Right. So I was lucky to have the right people to help me go along. But
awesome. Okay, well, apparently it's time to go to break. So we're going to do that. Come here, Harper. Come see Papa. Come here. Come here. Let's see. Come here. Hurry up. Come on. Hurry up. We got to get to break here. All right. So you get to come in here and sit on the show for a little bit. All right. We are going to jump out for a quick break. When we come back, say we're going to jump out for a quick break. Jump out for a quick break. Okay, we're going to jump out for a break. We come back. It is the recipe of the week. We'll be in the kitchen with Chef Kelly and Sherry. We are doing some sesame seared tuna with ponzu sauce. This is one that's pretty easy to do, and you're going to enjoy it. I ate it. It was fantastic. We're way behind, but I couldn't stop talking about fishing rods with you. So anyway, Harper says goodnight, everybody. But we got another hour of Fish on Northwest coming at you. So jump out for a break. We come back. We'll be in the kitchen for this week's recipe of the week.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest. We're here in the kitchen for the recipe of the week with Chef Kelly. And as always, you have something incredible. What do we have here? Tuna.
Tuna.
Yeah.
Yes, albacore tuna. We're going to do a sesame seared albacore tuna with ponzu sauce.
Ponzu.
Yes. This is straight up, like straight from the sushi restaurant.
Compound.
Yeah, great appetizer. Yeah, having fun, huh?
Oh yeah, I guess I am. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the ponzu sauce. Okay, so it's a few exotic ingredients, but it's not too bad. Okay, so we're gonna use some dried kelp or kombu.
Okay.
It just comes out like seaweed fruit leather.
Or a roll-up.
Yeah.
Fruit roll-up. Seafood roll-up.
Then we have bonita flakes. This is a good product if you like to make your own dashi.
What's dashi?
Dashi is the stock you use for making miso soup.
Oh, miso soup.
Yeah, everybody loves miso soup, right?
Yes.
Then mirin, it's a sweet rice wine. And then sake, everybody knows what sake is, especially after a couple of them, yeah?
Yeah. I'm not even on the sake.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So over here, we took the mirin, so a cup of mirin, a cup of sake, a 3-inch strip of the kombu, and 1 package of this. So that's about a half a cup of the bonita flakes.
Okay.
And about 2 teaspoons of chili flakes. And so we have that reduced down. Okay.
Okay.
And so let's put that there for now. So then we're going to add a cup of soy sauce to this. Exactly 1 cup.
Okay.
Now you weren't even paying attention. Okay. Juice of 2 lemons.
Exactly 1 cup.
Yes.
Okay. I always know they're exact. I don't even have to question it.
I know. See?
Yeah. I can hear it. I don't even
Juice of 2 limes. There we go. We're just going to stir that around.
So all citrus.
All citrus. So typically you would do like 1 lemon and 1 lime and then a cup of rice wine vinegar. I kind of tend to like a more just straight citrus. I'm just not a big fan of just rice wine vinegar for this. So
Okay. Have it your way.
Right?
Yep. Always is. At least when you're here in this kitchen.
And I'm always right.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll give you once a week.
Okay, so our ponzu sauce is ready. All right,
Okay.
so let's talk about our tuna. So our tuna loin, we cut it kind of like 1 bite size. So kind of like 1.5 inches around about there, I don't know, 1 1/4 inch, right? Okay, so then we're going to season it and season it pretty heavy. It's a thick piece of meat.
So it can take more seasoning like that?
Yeah, than typically, because you got to imagine, I'm going to slice this, so you're only getting an edge of that seasoning, for every bite.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so all of that is just unseasoned. So there you go.
Pepper too?
Pepper, a little bit of pepper. There you go.
Did you get it?
Almost got away. Okay, so we have 2 types of sesame seeds today. Here, take care of that. And so we have the untoasted raw sesame seeds here. And then I have shown Sherry there the toasted ones, which are great because they have a lot of flavor already to go. Because, if you just ate a mouthful of these, you're like,
Yeah.
You know?
But since you're searing it, they would burn.
They would burn,
correct?
yeah, because if you're using the already toasted ones.
See, I listen.
Yeah, sometimes.
Uh-huh.
So we have a pan already hot, really ripping hot here. We're gonna have a good amount of oil in there. Don't be one of those people, I don't like, use a lot of oil in my cooking. This is one of those where you'll just have burn spots and it's just not good.
Oh, to evenly sear it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is going to go really quick, guys. So this is not going to be, 3 minutes on each side. No, just as soon as you get color, you're flipping it, and it's probably, you're going to see it, probably within a minute, it's going to be done.
Wow.
So we're just going to get a little light little sear
Okay.
on there. I don't want my sesame seeds burnt. So just, nice little golden brown.
Yeah, that doesn't take long. Oop, pop that. Got a sesame seed.
Don't be scared.
Okay, I won't be.
And that's it. See how quick that was? I mean, it was like, I don't know, it might have been a minute. I was thinking more like it's probably like 50 seconds. So you're gonna need a sharp knife.
Okay, and you just slice it.
Just slice it nice
pretty
and thin.
like 1/8 of an inch.
1/8 of an
maybe?
inch, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see light sear all the way around. It's pretty much raw in the center.
Awesome.
Okay, so.
Looks delicious.
And you've never had sushi
No.
before this, right?
No.
Right? So this is kind of new territory.
Yeah. I'm sure I'm going to love it though. I just don't do the whole sushi bar type things. I don't know. I probably would like it.
I'm going to change
my mind.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, you've changed my mind on a lot, actually, so.
Okay, so in the center, we're just going to put some pickled ginger.
And you like the pink.
I like the pink ginger. It's just a little bit sweeter.
Okay.
Okay, so just so like that. One of those, and come here, you. Okay, so avocado.
Oh, I see you're alternating.
Yeah.
Let me get this out of your way.
It's okay. I don't need any fingers.
Yes, you do.
What?
Yes. You're so delicate about it. It's just amazing, Chef.
Sometimes I feel like a klutz.
Well, not in the kitchen, that's for sure. Okay.
Here we go.
Just work them around and.
Yep, and just work around this like that.
Okay.
Okay, and then we are going to make a little sushi, a pickled ginger rose.
For me?
Yeah, just for you.
Okay.
Usually I just kind of take a piece, kind of roll it up like that.
Yeah.
And then just put it right on top like that. There you go.
Look how talented you are. In the sauce.
Then our ponzu sauce.
Ponzu sauce.
This is way better than your store-bought stuff because, you know, it should have nice fresh citrus notes to it. So, you know, how could you have a bottled sauce that's going to have that fresh pop of citrus? Okay, so just a little bit of green onions around for some extra color.
Well, you sure know how to make it look incredible. So.
Okay, maybe a little sesame oil because we are using sesame seeds. There we go.
And then the toasted ones.
Then the toasted sesame seeds, which are some of my favorite. There we go.
Wow.
Easy
Just
peasy,
like
guys.
that.
5 minutes, and you have an amazing, probably $15 at a sushi restaurant.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. There's a sesame seared albacore tuna with avocado and ponzu sauce. Guys, please try it out. It's very easy, and it's tuna season, so go get you some.
All right. And just like that, Bob's your uncle.
No.
I've been waiting to say that. Do you know what that means?
Isn't that English? That's
No.
Yeah.
I thought so too. Well, our Canadian friends seem to think it's from Canada.
Oh, okay.
We've heard different variations.
I'll have to try that when I
Yeah.
go catch those kings up in Canada, too.
Oh, okay. There you go. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and throw it back to you guys in the studio.
Welcome back in studio. Dwayne England, Dave Calhoun, still here.
Still here.
Still hanging out. You're going to have to try that recipe out. You get your hands on some tuna loin. It is amazing.
I'll tell you where I get my tuna. From the guys that go out on the coast that we're going to be talking to here pretty soon.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. That is from the old Tray Fin crew,
I wish that I wish I could fish the salt. My last salt trip was my last salt trip.
Is that right?
It was horrible.
Patch or nothing?
Patch
Nothing
on.
works?
I puked through the patch. It was one of those days we shouldn't have gone out, and it was just horrible. And I thought, you know what? My body doesn't like the salt.
Okay.
That's why I'm a freshwater guy.
You're a freshwater guy. We'll let other people get your hands on the
Yep.
tuna for you and then give that recipe a try. Everything Chef and Sherry do, fantastic recipes, and they're all cataloged. Once we've put them out there, you can find them on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel. Nice about YouTube channel, we put them all in a category for recipes of the week, and there is now upwards of 25 of them in there, and they're all fantastic. So, all right, with that, we're going to jump out for a quick break. We come back, we're going to have Aaron Walker. You know him.
Yep.
Formerly with Team Trayfin, ran the boat, captained the boat Opportunity, has a long history with Battlefish and all those things. We met Aaron and crew down there in El Waco when we were down there earlier this year for our live show out of the El Waco Tuna Club, and became friends with Aaron and the gang down there. So Aaron's going to join us because he recently, the team he patched together and the epic journey they took to find themselves on the first place podium down at the recent OTC Garibaldi event is something to listen to. He's got a great story, how it all came together and how they found themselves into first place. So we'll jump out for a break. We come back, Aaron Walker will be on the phone and we'll talk about the Garibaldi win right after this message.
come out to break a night, and the pink skies waving goodbye. She come out to break a night, leaving no traces around. She's trying to free a reckless heart. She's trying to be as light as the breeze. The queen of art, Friday morning. The queen of art, Friday morning. She come out to break the night, as sweet as always. You come out to break the night, you'll be wearing her charm so frail. Yeah, she's trying to avoid everyone.
Looks like we're back on, actually, Dave. So I just saw the light click on. So we are here, and we are waiting to get Aaron Walker on the phone. Are we there, David? Almost. So I think the break snuck up on us.
So we had some questions during the break that I want to address really quick.
Yeah, something about two-piece twitching rod.
I get a lot of people wanting me to make a two-piece because nobody apparently does. Mm-hmm. I do build them, just not as many as the one-piece. So I have some for sale, and I've got a big Labor Day sale. Go on the Northwest Rods Facebook page, shoot me a message, and I will try to handle all those messages.
You have a Labor Day sale.
Labor Day
and
sale.
they can get the info and contact you via the Northwest Rods Facebook page. Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. Well, with that, we do have Aaron Walker on the phone. Has had a busy day. He was out chasing elk this morning. That lucky son of a gun down there in Oregon. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You make it home safe there, buddy? Everything good?
I did. I made it back over the mountains, and I'm back here at the house. So
nice,
it was
nice.
A good morning hunt. It was some close calls out there. I had some nice bulls within almost shooting range. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like our previous conversation earlier today that you're definitely going to get a bull. It's just a matter of when, you know. So it's going to happen for you.
We all, optimistic hunters, we're always going to get one. Just give me a few more minutes, right?
Yep, absolutely. So let's remind a few folks, if they're not familiar with what you had going on previously. You were formerly the captain on Team Trayfin on the boat Opportunity. You guys spent a season there with the camera crews following you around on Battlefish. Great series, fun to watch. We came down with our live event to the Tuna Club here in Waco several months ago, met you and the guys, had a really good time. You took time to jump on the show with us. We talked about that experience with you then, and that was all very, very exciting and great stories, and it was good to meet you, and the fact that I can call you up and get you back on the show is good for us. So you guys, you in particular, Aaron, with the team competed in the OTC Ilwaco, and then recently competed in the OTC Garibaldi event. Let's back up, tell folks how you did and what transpired with the Ilwaco event, and then we'll roll right into how this all came together for you in Garibaldi.
Well, we fished this year on a good friend of mine, Les Swinton, has a boat called the Long Shot. I've fished with him for many, many, many years, and kind of sliding back into just some fun fishing. So we formed Team Long Shot, to fish in the Ilwaco leg of the Oregon Tuna Classic. And we had a pretty strong team of myself and Rick Hale and Jacob Bushnell and Chris Abarca, and of course Les Swinton and his grandson. And we did fairly well in Ilwaco. We, I think, ended up in 4th place overall with 110 pounds of fish.
Wow.
But the highlight of the tournament for us there was we did come in first in the Calcutta side pots, winning nearly $14,000 for our day of fishing.
On side pots. You come in 4th and you still walk away with almost 14 grand. You guys had to be pretty happy about that.
We were pretty happy about that, to say the least. Yeah, it's a good day of fishing when someone gives you a big check at the end of the day.
Yep, so that's the first leg of the OTC, the Oregon Tuna Classic, and for those that kind of know a little bit about it, I mean, great event, great fundraiser, lots of tuna processed through the food bank then and distributed out to families in need. Lots of money raised for those in need. I mean, it's just overall a really well-ran event and well-attended. And so then the second leg of the tour here is in August, and you guys move on down to Garibaldi. Your intentions, if I understand you correctly, were to take pretty much the same team and go compete at Garibaldi. Was that the plan?
That was the plan, yes. My good buddy Les Winston, though, he had some family obligations. He had his cousin's 50th wedding anniversary, which he promised that he'd be there.
Right.
And if anybody knows Les Winston, he is a man of his word, and without a doubt, family comes first. So we knew that Les was not be able to fish that second leg of the tournament with us, and that we needed to find another home for our team on a different boat, which we did secure with another good friend from the Tuna Club, the Oahu Tuna Club, John Boyer, who is the owner of Eat Me Lures Company, which is a pretty famous company in the fishing world. And so we got a ride on his boat, which is, I think, a 38-foot Cabo, nice twin diesel inboard fishing boat. And it was me and Krager, Rick Hale, John Boyer, and John Boyer's son, Tommy. We're all going to fish that tournament. So we left out of Willapa on Friday with live bait to come down to Garibaldi. And we went out, of course, and we fished down, competing in the Big Fish Friday event. Caught a couple nice tuna and found a couple spots we wanted to fish. And unfortunately, on the way into the Garibaldi harbor, Mr. Boyer kind of went outside of the green can there, and there's a place they call I think they call it the sow and the pigs or something of that nature. And we unfortunately ran that boat up with a couple rocks there and did some damage to some props and some drive lines. And so we pulled the boat into the dock there and got a diver to come check things out. We actually had an extra set of props, and so the diver came in, the props are sitting there. We're just going to switch the props out and try to get this boat, if like anything off the 500, we're going to switch out some tires and get her back on the track. But as the diver went to pull the props off, there's a keyway that locks that prop onto the shaft, and he dropped that keyway into the water. And we came up, he asked, "You guys have an extra set of keyways?" And at that point right there, I knew that boat was not going to fish that tournament.
Yeah, that's a pretty integral part of locking that prop in place. And once you drop that down in the mud at the bottom of the bay there, you're pretty much done unless somebody happens to have one of those in their pocket. So now you're scrambling, to say the least, I have to imagine. What's going through your head at this point?
Well, morale dipped immediately to the bottom, lip in the dirt pretty quick.
Yeah.
And, quickly thinking we're done. You're never done. As a fisherman or a hunter, you're always, we're going to make another cast, we're going to keep going. So the wheel started to spin, and I just thought, hey, I need another boat. So a lot of guys down there and everybody just started putting their feelers out and looking for another boat, looking for another option. We didn't want to just quit. Not in us just to quit. So we went to the captain's meeting there, and everybody kind of had heard what was going on, and a lot of guys offered some rides in their boat. The team Fast Cat, who was sitting second, they offered us to, bring our team on their boat, and a lot of guys offered. But one guy, Dustin Green, another fellow Oahu Tuna Club member, said, "Hey, I'm in like 20th place. I'll gladly throw my team placing away, and you can come fish on my team, and we'll go do what we can do because we were sitting pretty decently in the overall standings with a shot to win the overall. So we wanted to fight on and fish on, and so that was the best option. So I took Team Long Shot onto fishing vessel Real Therapy, and we went out and fished the tournament. So we went from the 42-foot Long Shot pursuit boat down to the 38-foot Cabo, down to the 28-foot Grady White.
And how far out are you having to go to find these tuna out there?
Typically the tuna are 30, 40, 50 miles. We had got a report from a commercial buddy of mine named Zeke Estrella, who told us that there's some big fish south. So we ventured south about 45 miles, me, our boat, Real Therapy, and another boat, captained by Sean on the tuna tender. So those two boats, Waco Tuna Club guys, we went south, and we kind of fished together down in that neighborhood. And fishing was pretty slow for everyone, not only us. Early on in the day was lots of small fish and, not the volume you're hoping to see. And of course, not many people know this, but the salinity levels in the Oahu Harbor versus the Garibaldi Harbor are quite a bit different.
Oh.
So our live bait that we had brought down and saved through Friday, when we woke up Saturday morning on the Real Therapy, we had about 20 live baits still alive.
Ooh.
And they were not real healthy and sick. And so our live bait game was quickly kind of out the window. And we had a lot of dead bait because all of it died, of course. So we had to kind of adopt the Garibaldi fishing tactics, which is dead bait and iron. That's Garibaldi guys have done that for years, and that's how they fish. And us Oahu guys fish live bait because, it's better.
Well, and you guys, historically up in Oahu, I mean, you can get the live bait. Garibaldi, it always seems to be a bit of an issue to actually get somebody down there that's, supplied with enough live bait.
Well, just the salinity level has a lot to do with the anchovy survivability, and that has the most important thing to do with how the anchovies actually survive.
Gotcha.
So we were out fishing, and of course things were slow and slower, and we moved around and we were looking for spots. And towards the end of the day, Dustin said, "Hey, Aaron, jump on the sticks there, and hopefully we can get lucky." And so it was probably pushed in 2:30, and we had about a 2-hour run left, and we had to be back at Garibaldi at 5 p.m. for the check-in. So about 2:30, we kind of trolled up a big underwater ridge, and usually you can find tuna over structure a lot of times when we're looking for them. We'll target structure, underwater structure, because of the upwellings. And as we climb this underwater mountain, when we get towards the tip of it, I noticed another commercial boat just working this area back and forth. And we got in that zone, and bam, we had fish on. And we throw dead bait, and the tuna flash to the surface, a large school, and you can tell instantly there's larger fish. So we had about 3 live baits left. I fished one out of like a raccoon, got it on a hook, slid it over the side, hooked up instantly, put that rod in the rod holder, grabbed another rod, did the same thing, hooked up rod holder, and that first rod we noticed was just getting peeled down to like the back in the backing. So a guy had seen Chris picked up that rod and reeled it in, and sure enough, it's a nice fish, over 20 pounds. And all 3 of the fish that we hooked right there on the last 3 live baits were 20-pound models.
Oh.
So the fish kind of went in the boat a little bit, and we were down to we had 5 minutes left to fish. And so I just told the boys, "Hey, let's put the troll gear out real quick. Let's keep trolling." So Pete Parks threw out a swim bait, and we started trolling that swim bait. And as soon as we did, it went down again. Bam, fish on, threw that bait. And we continued to catch a couple small fish. But Pete reeled in what he said was a small fish on the swim bait rod. And we just said, "Hey, just hang that one while we're catching these rest of these other ones." And as we finished our little bait stop there, and we just had to go, it was like, we have to go now. Pete grabbed this swim bait rod, and he starts reeling it in. As the fish gets closer to the surface, I'm like, "That's no small fish." And so we all kind of came to immediate alert, and we're like, "Oh my God, we got to get this fish aboard right now."
And that was the one you left off the swim bait hanging over the side of the boat on that rod for 5 to 10 minutes, just
it's been hanging around for 10 minutes, which is not, usually you can lose, I mean, it's pretty common to lose fish like that.
Right.
So we boat that fish, and it's our largest fish today at like 24.5 pounds.
Pete doesn't know a big fish from a small fish. It was a hit him in the head.
Well, it was, it was a kind of a panic scenario. Fish, it was fish were flying, and it was, it was one of those things. So we happily boated that fish, and Captain Dustin put the pedal to the metal, and as we got going, our ETA said 5:21 to Garibaldi.
Oh boy.
Like, So it was pretty sloppy offshore. As we got in closer, it started to lay down, and Dustin got to lay the throttles down, and we were pushing 34, 35, 36 knots wide open. And I was just thinking in the back of the boat, I was like, "Please don't break down right now. Please don't break down." So we slid into Garibaldi. We're about the 5th guy from the last to get in there to weigh in, and we weighed in. And we were kind of weighing our fish on the boat, and we were like, "Man, we just got barely 100 pounds," which in typical normal years, when I've won it in years past, we've had 125 pounds, 130 pounds. You kind of need that upper scale weight to usually win one of these tournaments.
Right.
So 100 pounds, we're like, man, we're going to be lucky to get the top 10, you know. But as we got to the dock and I got up there and weighed in, and the guy who weighed me in was like, hey, that's a pretty good score. And the whispers start. These tournaments, there's a lot of whispering along, you know, after the fishing people are starting to figure out, hey, what'd you get? And the rumors are spreading, and it's kind of exciting, building up to the moment when they finally announce what is what. But we got into the tent, and, you know, the whispers are going, and I came back to the table with the boys, and I was like, gentlemen, it kind of sounds like we might have a shot here.
Yeah.
So the excitement level kind of peaked, and as the event went on and they started announcing weights, and it was pretty obvious that everyone in the whole tournament caught a whole bunch of little tiny fish. And we got lucky. It was a long shot, no pun intended or pun intended. It's a real long shot that connected for us, and we ended up being the winners of the Oregon Tuna Classic Garibaldi.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have run into more obstacles to prevent you from even getting out on the water. So not only did you rally and pull it all together and get out and head south when everybody else headed north, and not settle for catching small fish, somehow you managed to find a few large ones that just flat out outscored everything everybody else brought in from up north. I mean, the whole thing, the culmination of it to victory is just unbelievable that you're able to pull it off.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was a long shot, and we, you know, sometimes we fish and a little luck never hurts, and we got lucky. I'll admit it right now, there's a little bit of luck there, but skill and opportunity met a little bit of luck, and we pulled it off, and it was damn fun. It was damn fun. You know, I've won this tournament before, but these guys had never won a tournament before, and to see their excitement and to feel how excited and proud they were was a real pleasure of mine to be a part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I was getting sick just hearing you talk about going 45 miles south. I'm feeling a little queasy right now. I really don't like the salt. So, I mean, I really wish I could go tuna fish. That's one of those things that I never got a chance to do, and I'm pretty sure I never will. And I know there's a lot of ways to try and get away from seasickness. But I hear about the Tuna Classic, and I go, God, wouldn't it be great if we had the Oregon Kokanee Classic?
Yeah, I don't know.
And it was $14,000. You come in with 25 big old kokanee or something.
Oh, yeah, that would just be great,
figure out ways to do that and not have to go out in 44-foot boats with triple 300s and all that.
That's why they pay $15,000 for these things, because it costs a hell of a lot of money to get into it.
That's what it costs to get out there, apparently.
Yep. Well, congratulations, Aaron and team Longshot for pulling that off. I mean, again, odds were not in your favor, and somehow you guys managed to pull it all together. And at the end of the day, you were standing there holding the check. And what was your total winnings, side pots, and everything else all together? What'd you walk away?
In the Garibaldi tournament, we got $15,500. So we pocketed nearly $29,000 in the last month tuna fishing.
Yeah, not everybody can say that.
Not a bad way to go tuna fishing. And unfortunately for you, get seasick, you know, our albacore fishery is probably one of the greatest fisheries in all of the world. I mean, it's just an amazing quantity fishery. The fish fight like you wouldn't believe, and the food, the table fare is some of the best in the world too. So it's, in my opinion, one of the greatest fisheries I've ever fished.
Yeah, Dave's unfortunate that he can't stomach getting out there on the salt. I have to wear a patch, but at least I can muster up and make it happen.
Well, and you guys can always bring me some tuna.
We can bring I can eat it. Yeah. Oh, you can definitely eat it.
Oh, yeah. You got me, sucker.
Like you mentioned earlier, the Oregon Tuna Classic is a great organization that has, for the last 15 years, donated hundreds of thousands of dollars and hundreds of thousands of pounds of food to the needy in Oregon and Washington. It's a really great organization that has been really spearheaded by Dale Stevens and his wife Letty and Megan Waltals, they have worked tirelessly for 15 years to make this tournament probably one of the best tournaments on the West Coast. So those guys deserve a huge round of applause and a big slap on the back, because they do all this stuff just in out of the kindness of their heart. So it's a great event put on by great people. There's some great fishermen that fish it. Some of the, as you guys know, Team Fortune, the world champions, they fish that tournament as well. Those guys are obviously up and comers, and you know, they've arrived. When you're a world champion, you've arrived. But you know, fishing against some of the best fishermen in the world and in the best fishery in the world, it's just a fun time overall.
Right. Didn't Matt and Team Fortunate win Big Fish Friday at Garibaldi?
They did. Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's not like they went home.
Super nice guys.
Oh, great guys. Met all them down there too. Spent some time. Actually, like you, had Matt on the show as well. Talk about that World Championship win, because that's awful damn impressive in and of itself. So
yeah, it is. Very proud of those guys.
Yeah,
very,
fantastic.
Very
well, you guys got just a great group down there. I can't wait to get back down and spend more time with you guys, and maybe get out on a boat at some point. You know, Matt and yourself have said, hey, you know, jump on down here if you got time, and I need to take advantage of that and get that on the schedule. So
yes, you do. You got to go there and fish that live bait fishery, and hopefully get that jack pull in your hand. And,
there you go. Yeah,
some of that best albacore tuna in the world into your own house.
All right. Well, phone's going to probably be ringing here, but we got to get through elk season first. So.
Yes, indeed. Yes, we do.
All right, Aaron. Always a pleasure. Appreciate you taking the time, and you know, don't be a stranger. We'll be in touch, and really appreciate the conversation this evening. Good stuff.
Thanks, buddy. Have a great evening.
All right, man. You too. Talk to you later. Yeah. If of all obstacles and ways of not being able to even just get out and go fishing, and the fact that they pulled this together, and you know, the Team Longshot could not have a more profound name in how they were able to just rise above all doom and gloom and just make it happen. And you know, a lot of that's connectivity and folks that they know within that inner workings of that group down there. That is, you've been there, the building and everything. You know, Aaron and his guys own that tuna club. It is second to none as far as atmosphere and people that you meet that are involved with that thing.
I just went out of Willapa 2 or 3 times this Buoy 10 season, where I haven't been out there in 20 years. And they have a cool little boardwalk out there. They do a little sail and stuff, and such a neat little area, and that whole harbor is just it's a really a nice place to hang out and enjoy. It's
fantastic. All right, we're going to jump out for a break. When we come back, we're going to jump into the bait lab. It's humpy season. I don't know what that means down in Kalama, but up here in the north end, it means that we're going after pink salmon in the rivers, right? So
absolutely.
even on Wednesdays. So you get your pinks, you get your humpies, you got your eggs. A lot of folks think humpy eggs don't work well as far as cured bait. I've written a handful of blogs or articles over the years, done a couple how-to videos. Lots of questions came up this last week referencing how do you cure humpy eggs? What's the best way to go about it? I have found for years success in curing up humpy skeins and utilize them later October, November for Chinook and coho. They work fantastic. I really like the size these eggs are. They're simple to cure. They're a bit of a softer egg, so you got to do a little bit different process when you're curing them. But if you do it right, they can be a fantastic bait that will definitely work for you later on in the fall as you target Chinook and coho later in season. So jump out for a break. We come back. We're going to be in the bait lab. Going to show you a step-by-step process on how to get your humpy eggs all cured up for the fall season. We'll be back right after this. Is it really? Yeah. Okay. Little problem there. You got to have eggs to cure. Oh boy. This is not going to work. All right. Dave, jump out for a quick break. We come back. We're going to be back in here in the Bay Lab. Ran a little behind, but we'll be back in a second, get this straightened out.
At Metal Supermarkets, we understand your need for fast access to a wide variety of metals. So we've made it easy. Our network of stores carries a wide variety of metal in all different types, shapes, sizes, and grades, with no required minimum order size. Who could ask for more? Simply tell us your dimensions online, on the phone, or in store, and we'll cut or process the metal to your desired size, often while you wait. We offer same-day service and can deliver the metal right to your door or job site. We even source hard-to-find metals, so no matter what you're looking for, Metal Supermarkets can provide it for you. And we're conveniently located with brick-and-mortar stores in Seattle and Portland, so you can check out our extensive stock for yourself. Superior customer service is guaranteed. Quality service from real people who know metal. We are the small quantity metal experts. To place an order, simply call a store to talk to one of our knowledgeable customer service representatives. Fill out a quote request online, order off of our e-commerce website, or visit one of our many locations and pick out the metal you want. Whether you're a small or large business, government, homeowner, or hobbyist, we make it easy for you to buy the exact metal and just the amount you need. We've been doing this for over 30 years, so we know how to get it done. Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for metal. Visit or call a Metal Supermarket store near you today.
All right, welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest. We are actually ready to go this time in the Bay Lab, not running around with our heads cut off trying to make this thing happen. So, gotta love live TV. Anyway, we've recovered, and we are going to talk about curing pink eggs or humpy eggs. Every time I say that, though, Dave giggles, so we'll just say pink eggs. A couple things about pink eggs. Okay, first of all, they're a much softer egg, and I'll show you here in comparison as we pull it in closer later, but you know, they are, they have much less skin around the overall eggs than, say, these coho eggs that are laying next to them. So they're a softer egg. If you use a strong sulfite-based cure, oftentimes you're going to find that they tend to ooze a lot of fluid, they burst. Some refer to that in industry as you've burned your eggs. A hot sulfite-based cure on humpy eggs, pink eggs, does not work really well. So I've softened the blow a little bit over the years, and I have kind of mixed and matched and come up with something that I use on a lot of my fall salmon eggs. And the reason I say that is I'll not only use this mixture that I'm going to show you on pink eggs, but for in-river adult salmon, coho, chinook, even chum. if you retain those fish and they have mature eggs in them, you're going to find that the skin is starting to break down around the skein, softening the egg and opening them up quite a bit wider. There's, in some cases, not a lot of skin holding that skein intact. So anytime you use a strong sulfite-based cure on those types of soft eggs with lack of skin, it doesn't really do a lot to firm or toughen up the skin on that skein, making it a fishable, durable bait. You'll find that you go through a lot of bait because it starts off soft and you cure it and actually just perpetuate the softness, and they don't hold on. I hear that often is like, I cure these up and they only last a cast or two. So when it comes to soft eggs in mature fish in river and or your pink eggs, here's a surefire way to make sure you can cure them up, and they're going to work very, very well. So Fire Cure is a Pautzke cure, obviously. Fire Cure is a strong sulfite-based cure. It works great on salmon eggs. If you get a lot of salmon out in the salt, early in the lower estuary systems or lower in the river and the skeins are tight, I recommend using Fire Cure, especially the dark red. It puts a phenomenal cure on the eggs. They milk out tremendously. They have a ton of scent. They hold up well, and they fish very, very good. Fish respond to them. Again, heavy sulfite cure, heavy to moderate. When I get softer eggs and don't want to use a ton of sulfites, again, I soften the blow. I go with Fire, which is basically engineered to cure eggs to fish for steelhead. Steelhead particularly don't really respond well to sulfites. They like more of a sweet bait, something with a little bit more sugar in it, not so strong in the sulfites. So you stick with a cure that is sulfite free, but I like to have sulfite in there as a bite stimulant. I think it really makes a difference in river when you're pursuing Chinook and coho especially. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this full bottle of Fire, okay? I'm going to dump it into a container. Now into this, I got a couple things I'm going to want to mix to make it more of a salmon cure versus what it is right now, as I mentioned, a steelhead cure. I have 1 tablespoon for this entire 32-ounce bottle. I have 1 tablespoon of sodium sulfite. And you can get sodium sulfite at pretty much any store that sells baits and/or cures. You'll find it under different brands and different labels. So I do add some sodium sulfite, but not enough that I feel like it's going to burn the eggs. And over the years of using it in this proportion ratio, I find that it works very well. I add 1/2 cup of fine granulated sugar because I do like to have a little bit of a sweeter bait, believe it or not, when it comes to Chinook and coho fishing eggs under a bobber. I find that the sugar actually helps the eggs milk out more and send a bigger scent trail downriver to the fish. I'm also going to add in a 1 to 2 tablespoons of the Pautzke Firepower krill powder, 100% krill that's been dehydrated and made into a powder. I like more krill as a bite stimulant in my fall fisheries, and so I add that in here as well, even though the Fire already has a good amount of krill within it. So now I take this tub of cure mixture. I'm just going to mix it around really well. This is the dry portion of the cure that is going to go onto my eggs. Now, early on, I used to measure and use a certain amount or ratio or proportion of cure that would go on to the amount of eggs I have sitting here before me. But I've realized over years that simply by eyeballing it and sprinkling it on, it works just fine. Now, don't throw the container away after you mix this up. You simply need to grab a funnel and dump this back in here because you do need to store it in a container. Now you've added more stuff to it, so it's probably not all going to fit in the container, which is no big deal because after you use some out of your bottle, you can put the rest back into your jar. Okay, so now we got the basic mixture and the ingredients that I like to have in there. The other thing you can add, I have various types of powders that I've acquired from different companies and whatnot. This is actually ground up tuna. If you don't want to use tuna out of a can, dehydrated tuna flesh, and you can get online and shop around, you can find dehydrated tuna, you can find dehydrated sardine, which has worked well for me for years. You can add that into your mixture bottle if you choose, and sprinkle that right onto your eggs as well. And as it juices up and rehydrates the natural flesh of this dehydrated fish, the oils and whatnot actually come out of this, and it's a really good bite stimulant to add. So oftentimes, I didn't do it tonight because basically I forgot, but oftentimes I will add dehydrated powders of ground up fish, different types of fish, into my cures. So now it's pretty simple. This is going to be a gallon Ziploc bag type of a cure process. A couple things we want to do first though, as I'm looking at my eggs, I have a number of pink egg skeins here that are wide open. As I mentioned before, they lay open, they're nice and wide. I don't need to butterfly these. I've already removed the blood out of most of them. Real quickly, I'm going to show you how to remove the blood out of this one skein here that still has blood in it. You can see that vein right along there. And you can move that blood. These eggs have been in the fridge for a day and a half, and the blood still moves along that vein. I take a flat edge of my knife or my scissors, and I can literally move that blood down that vein. So all I need to do is put a small cut at the far end of that vein and open it up. And as I get that blood to travel, I basically wick it away with this paper towel right at the end here. See, all that blood comes out of there. I don't want to cure blood in my skein. You can even push it from the side back into the vein there. I don't want to cure blood into my skein. The eggs will cure. The blood tends to spoil and add a weird smell to your eggs. So we want to get as much blood out of our skein as we can. Now this is a humpy skein. For the most part, it's wide open. You may need to cut the end right there just to lay that open. That's referred to as butterflied. This little tiny coho skein, sorry we didn't get a bigger one, but that's the one. You can see how much skin is around that coho skein compared to, say, this pink salmon is wide open. Tighter skeins like this, it's really simple to butterfly. You're just going to take a real sharp knife right down the middle of that skein. If this was a larger skein, you'd do the same exact thing. We're just going to run that down the middle, and look at that, just lays it wide open, okay? So now that is what we refer to as butterfly. If you butterfly steaks or cuts of meat, it's the same thing. We're just laying that open so that we can get the cure inside the skein. It does a much nicer job, more evenly distributed around the egg. So now I have my eggs laid out here, pretty much single layer, nice and wide open, and I'm gonna basically take the powder cure and sprinkle it on. Now I used to say, or I said earlier, that I used to measure, and for me now it's more of a visual in that I just add the cure. Again, this isn't a real strong sulfite cure, so I don't have to worry about burning the eggs, but I want to make sure I get enough of this on there that's going to cure and do a nice job. Now this does a pretty good job like this, but to really get these cured and to get the eggs cured evenly and all around and to firm them up even a little bit more, I rely on our Pautzke's fire brine. So I basically take this powder cure and put it on here after I've mixed it to the ratios that I need. And then I'm going to put it into the bag, and I'm going to add some fire brine as a liquid cure because it just does such a nice job toughening up the skein, making it much more durable. But with those sugars added in there and with the fire brine, actually you would think these eggs would be a little bit too dry when it's all said and done, but they're firmed up, they hold up well, and they milk out really good. This is about, 8 skeins, I guess. Probably about a half bottle of the red fire brine. Goes right in here. It's not specific measurements. It's enough to make sure that it's bathing in liquid, okay? One other thing I want to add, and you don't have to, this will add a tremendous amount of color. Between the red Baraxel fire and the fire brine, it adds a tremendous amount of color over the course of 8 to 12 hours. The other thing I can add though, and I really like to utilize this, is the red fire dye, because the dye properties are so strong when it comes to putting a deep red color onto your eggs that I really think Chinook and Coho respond to. I'm going to put 1 tablespoon of red fire dye into this mixture as well. Okay, so now I'm leaving a little bit of air in there at the start of this, because as I roll this around, I want to make sure all that dry cure gets evenly distributed, mixed up in the liquid, and that's basically my ratios. Like I said, I think I got eight small skeins in there. Typically we'll do, a gallon Ziploc baggie. I never fill up more than half to 3/4 with egg skein and then add my contents accordingly. Doesn't matter how big or how many skeins there are. If you lay them out on the table and add your dry cure to them first, you can gauge how much you truly need. Then you dump them into the bag off your paper towels right on in, and you add your liquid. Now, those eggs will sit in there for 8 to 12 hours. Typically, I'll just leave them at room temperature. This time of year, depending if your garage isn't too hot, no more than 70 degrees or so, you can leave them at room temperature. If you need to put them in the fridge, you can, but it slows down the curing process, okay? I want to keep these in the liquid for 8 to 12 hours. Good 12 hours isn't going to hurt anything. Then I'm going to take them out and put them in a colander and let them drip off, all right? And when I'm done with that, I'm going to take something like a plastic container. I'm going to line it with paper towels, and I'm going to simply take those egg skeins out of the colander, put them on the paper towels, egg side down, skin side up, allowing the rest of the liquid to drain out of the skein. I'm going to put this in my bait fridge uncovered for at least a day. I want those eggs and that skin to get almost a rubbery texture to them, and you're going to think that they're a little bit too firm and they won't juice out or they won't milk out enough to fish for Chinook or coho. But that couldn't be further from the truth. They're going to feel durable, but when they get in water, they just naturally start milking and put out tremendous egg scent. So 8 to 12 hours in the liquid, put them into a colander, let them drip over a garbage can, let that liquid drain off, put them into a container with paper towels at the bottom to absorb the extra liquid out, put them in the fridge for a day. They're going to firm up and fish very, very well. Those eggs then are either ready to fish or you can put them in the freezer. When I put eggs in the freezer, I'll take them out of that container, put them in a gallon Ziploc bag, roll the air out of it, okay? So you're gonna simply roll the air out, seal the bag, put them in the freezer. I'm gonna let that sit in the freezer till it's rock hard. So I give it at least a good week to ensure that my eggs are gonna be rock hard. I'm not gonna have to worry about them crushing because what I wanna do now is vacuum seal these. I'm looking at putting eggs up in the freezer that I'm going to leave for several months, 6 months, maybe to a year. Long-term storage of more than a couple months. In a gallon Ziploc bag in the freezer like this with little to no air in them, they're going to last for several months, no problem. If you're talking long-term storage, multiple months, half a year or longer, I'm going to roll those up. I'm going to make or get a pre-made food saver or vacuum seal type bag. I'm going to take this bag of frozen eggs right out of the freezer into the bag, and I'm going to pull the vacuum down on this, okay? Now there is no air on these eggs, and they're not going to crush because they're frozen solid. So now I can store these for even a year or longer. They're not going to get freezer burned. There's no air to them. Air is the enemy. They're sealed up. They're held tight. They're going to work very well. The key thing here is when you pull these eggs out of the freezer, because you're going to fish them in a couple days, you want to give them time to thaw out. So it's not a quick thaw. You need to think a couple days ahead and be ready. So you want to pull these out of the freezer, cut the bag to make sure you release the vacuum, pull the eggs out of your vacuum bag, unroll it, open your Ziploc, and make sure it's not going to fall over and all the juice isn't going to drain out when it falls over. But set it somewhere, usually in a container in the bag. Let them sit at room temperature for a couple days or a day and completely thaw out, and then or put them in the refrigerator so they thaw out slowly. You don't want to lose all that juice that's actually in there along with the eggs. You got to make sure you take them out of the vacuum, get the vacuum off of them before you just allow them to lay on the counter and thaw, because as they thaw, they expand, and if they're under vacuum in your sealed bag, as they thaw, they're going to crush. And when you eventually open this bag, you're going to end up with a bag of juice, and you're going to be pissed off at me because you're going to say I lied because I told you to freeze them and vacuum pack them. Well, it works fantastic, but you have to do reverse order when you take them out to prep them for fishing. So give yourself a couple days, cut the vacuum, open them up, let them thaw. You're going to have eggs that are going to be durable when you fish them. You're going to have eggs that have tremendous amount of scent and color, and they're going to put out a good scent trail. You're going to get multiple casts out of them. Humpy eggs do work very well, and or mature Chinook and coho eggs as we get later in season. If you're curing those up, say even for springers next season, got to be thinking ahead. So just some tricks that I've found over the years. I use on soft eggs this type of cure process, albeit a little involved with powder and liquid cure, but it makes a fantastic egg that works really well. All right, we're going to jump out for a quick break. We come back, we're going to close out the show. May have a phone interview, may just close it out with Dave Calhoun. We'll be back right here after this.
At Metal Supermarkets, we understand your need for fast access to a wide variety of metals, so we've made it easy. Our network of stores carries a wide variety of metal in all different types, shapes, sizes, and grades, with no required minimum order size. Who could ask for more? Simply tell us your dimensions online, on the phone, or in store, and we'll cut or process the metal to your desired size, often while you wait. We offer same-day service and can deliver the metal right to your door or job site. We even source hard-to-find metals, so no matter what you're looking for, Metal Supermarkets can provide it for you. And we're conveniently located with brick-and-mortar stores in Seattle and Portland, so you can check out our extensive stock for yourself. Superior customer service is guaranteed. Quality service from real people who know metal. We are the small quantity metal experts. To place an order, simply call a store to talk to one of our knowledgeable customer service representatives. Fill out a quote request online, order off of our e-commerce website, or visit one of our many locations and pick out the metal you want. Whether you're a small or large business, government, homeowner, or hobbyist, we make it easy for you to buy the exact metal and just the amount you need. We've been doing this for over 30 years, so we know how to get it done. Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for metal. Visit or call a Metal Supermarket store near you today.
Welcome back in studio, Fish Hunt Northwest. I apologize for that little bait lab snafu. I was explaining to Dave at the break. I ran in there, got the frozen eggs out of the freezer. Right, I was concerned about making sure I got those because folks have been asking about how to store your eggs long term for freezer and what do I do? What have I found success with? So I wanted to make sure I fit that into that presentation. Albeit I forgot the actual eggs that we're going to cure, which is kind of the key point to the whole thing. So. Yeah. What do you always say? Do it live?
Well, yeah, and you are juggling a lot of balls around here. So.
Oh, well, there is that. Yeah, you got to fit that one in too. Our guest who was lined up, Matt Messing, with Messing Around Fishing Charters, said, "Hey, got some solid advice for Area 10 that he wanted to share this evening. If you're targeting coho, he says herring age spoons at 90 feet on the wire. Coho success so far. Share the knowledge." So. That pattern, for whatever reason, performed very well last year, and it's duplicating this year. Herring Aid is a phenomenal spoon, a 3.5 Kingfisher, and it flat out works. 90 feet on the wire up there, Dave, and probably 200 to 300 foot of water, and it flat out just gets it done on those cohos. So we will be heading back up there, David, soon, and putting in some time, getting ready for that Everett Coho Derby that Team FHN will be fishing later this month as we roll into September here in the next day or two. What do you got going on?
Well, I'm not fishing. I'm taking the weekend off.
Are you really?
So you know what's going on? Packwood. Have you ever been to Packwood?
Yes.
Up here, it's a huge sale. It go every year. On the holidays, we go up there. I collect old fishing stuff.
Yeah.
Old Abu reels, all the collectibles and stuff. So I love doing that on the Fridays.
Did you say
Abu?
It's Abu.
Well, I call him Abu. When you know him like I do, you can call him Abu.
When it's Dave, he says what he wants.
Yeah, I do what I want. But I collect old fishing stuff, and that's a great place to catch that. And, so doing that, we'll be up at the Puyallup Fair Saturday night, Keith Urban concert. Oh, I'm all over the place. I'm enjoying my weekends.
You changed your name to Matt, Man About Town.
Man About Town, yeah.
That's right.
And then as soon as Monday hits, back on the fish.
Yep.
The coho are starting to come in the tribs down in Southwest Washington.
Right.
The things we're using, the twitching jigs, the spinners, the divers, the bait, the plugs, all of our normal things. But we haven't had a whole lot of water. We just got a crazy rainstorm last night. I don't think it's going to change much.
You anticipating a lot of coho in the river in your backyard?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there again, just because everybody's going to get them.
Sure.
We're not going to get them like we did 4 years ago.
No.
We got spoiled 4 years ago when you could have 6 per person.
Right.
You'd be in the drift boat. You had 18 fish on the bottom. You couldn't put your feet on the bottom of the boat.
It's a horrible problem to have.
It's never, ever going to be like that again. I keep telling myself because we just keep talking about how it used to be. But this year, so that year's run, those eggs were wiped out at the hatchery with that landslide that happened.
Right.
Which is horrible. Those were the best fish we had. That was the best run. Whatever was going to happen to those eggs is just gone. So that's why the last 3 years have struggled on a lot of the rivers down there.
Yeah.
So this is the first year they're talking about the ocean conditions were good.
Yep.
The blob moved out.
Yep.
The Alaska-Canadian fishery didn't take a whole bunch of them.
Yep.
So not only are we getting a good coho run, but the Chinook forecast, it looks like they're going to be exceeded, which is going to be good news. That's going to help everybody in the upper Columbia because we're going to let those fish go up through for the most part. But I'm hoping they don't close the river down in my section so I can actually fish those fall Chinook and not have to go 30 miles upriver or all the way up to Kings of the Reach to get those fish.
There's a couple things that have been kind of working their way through here. One is as you kind of mentioned at the beginning of the show, it would appear that the Chinook forecast on that Columbia River is way under forecasted, which is great. Just means there's abundance of Chinook. Egg takes are going to be fantastic in the hatchery systems. Natural spawn recruitment could be substantially high, which would be great for 4 years from now. A lot of good positives to that. And it's been a lights out fishery. Even with the 20-day window of retaining Chinook, it was fantastic for those that took advantage. The pink forecast was 640,000 thereabout. There's reports now that it could be breaching 1.5 to 2 million. So again, under forecasted, it's overperforming. Great news. Lots of pinks hitting the gravel, all wild fish. There's no hatchery programs down Washington, unlike Alaska, supporting this pink run. If it comes in and exceeds, 1.5 to 2 million, that's a lot of nutrient getting put back into the rivers, which they desperately need for those smolt to, grow on from fry to smolt and get big and healthy before they outbound. Could have a good recruitment of outbounding smolt this next year.
Does anybody net those fish?
There are some commercial fisheries conducted out in Puget Sound.
Yeah.
Very select few, but there is not. It did not used to be that way. But when we started hitting 6.4 million pinks in Puget Sound, they find a market. So, yeah, to a point. Can't tell you this year what types of commercial fisheries are being constructed or directed based on the pinks because the run forecast was so dismal. 630,000.
Well,
but in comparison.
I just wanted an example of what happens when you have awesome fisheries that aren't netted.
Yeah.
Like, imagine shad. You know how many shad go over Bonneville?
Oh, that's crazy.
Because there's no nets for
Right.
them. Nobody's netting those fish out of there. There's no hatchery. There's never been a shad hatchery. Right. There's nobody that's doing anything to those fish. And they're allowed to naturally do what they want to do without being molested by nets.
We had that discussion to a point. Some of that has to do with ocean survivability. They eat differently than like our Salamana group, but that's a totally different story. But looking at the pinks this year, if they forecast 640,000, that's 10% of what was forecasted in 2015. So just 4 years later, we are getting 10% of the return of what was forecast in 2015, when ultimately we ended up having a dismal return, malnourished fish, low recruitment to spawner, very low outbounding fry in 2015. So 2017 was a dismal year in the 300,000s. That's why we're at 600 and some change for this coming year, albeit ocean conditions were a lot stronger, more favorable to survivability, and it looks like the fish responded. I can anticipate, I would think, that the coho numbers are not only going to come in extremely well, but they're going to be big fish based on the Chinook that we saw early in this season.
Yeah.
So,
and the B-run fish are what we're looking for. The A-run have been mainly wild. Let's talk about that earlier. More wild fish in the A-run, smaller. The B-run fish, those are the ones we want on those October rainy days.
Absolutely.
When those fish stack up and they're just, you know, like cordwood in there.
I'm going to make it a point to come down and fish rivers in your neighborhood because I know that could be a lot of fun, twitching or otherwise. And we'll make sure we get on the drift boat a time or two and make it happen. Again, we're going to apologize to Matt Messing, Messing Around Fishing Charters. We will get him on next week to talk about opportunities in Area 10 as the front edge of that coho run is just starting to perform. Matt's got it dialed and does a phenomenal job up there. So we'll definitely get him on next week to get an update as to how it's fishing, what's going on. Can't thank you enough for taking time and joining me in studio this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Don't be a stranger. You're not too far down the road.
Yeah.
And we'll see what the future holds for you.
I got some good stuff on the horizon.
I think you do.
Again, Northwest Rods Facebook page. You can get a hold of me. I'll try and answer all the questions from during the show. And yeah, just I can build anything. Whether or not it should be built, I can build everything.
Yeah, you can. All right. Very good. We ran a little long this evening. A couple snafus, live TV. What are you going to do? We just try to punt and go forward and just, get it done. So join us here next Thursday, 7 p.m. for another fantastic episode of FHN. Join us on Facebook during the week. Keep up on all that is going on around the Puget Sound and beyond throughout the Northwest. Check us out on our YouTube channel, subscribe, share our information, get it out there, post your questions to our Facebook page throughout the week, interact with us, post your photos. We want to see you guys catching fish and big grins on those kids. So have a great week, get out fishing. Hunting's just around the corner, by the way.
I know, September 1st, my archery deer. I'm so excited. I've seen more bucks.
We didn't even talk about it because there wasn't time. So we're going to get out of here. We'll see you next week, 7 p.m. Thanks for joining us.
Good night, guys.